Welcome to the Proactive Prevention Podcast with your host, Jim Mothersbaugh Jr. That's me, Jimbo in stereo. If you want to shield your life and the lives of those around you from the impact of drugs, alcohol, and other harmful substances, then prevention education is an absolute must. Tune in as we bring you insightful interviews with teens, parents, educators, medical professionals, law enforcement, and more, either backstage at our live Road Radio USA School Assembly events or from Road Radio USA podcast studios. The Proactive Prevention Podcast is here to support teens and anyone facing decisions about alcohol and drugs, empowering them to resist peer pressure and its negative consequences and ultimately become positive role models for their friends and others. In today's episode, we talk with Tina Snyder, who tragically lost her son to a fatal drug overdose. She talks about the signs and indicators of addiction, the impact Lee's death had on her family, and why she dedicates her time to spreading awareness and reducing the stigma of opioid addiction. I am here to introduce everybody to Tina Snyder. She came out today to do a podcast for us. Wonderful woman she is. Tell us a little bit about who you are and tell us about your son, Lee, his life, and the bond you folks shared.
I'm Tina Snyder. I'm from Muncie, Pennsylvania. I had 3 kids, have 3 kids. And my oldest son was born October 28th, 1992. He graduated from East Lake Cummings School District in 2011. He was always a bubbly little guy growing up, and he was always so cheerful and outgoing. He would always go out to his grandparents and help his grandfather in the garden and got a job.
What were some of his hobbies?
He liked to go fishing and listen to rap music and spend a lot of time with his friends, family, his nephew, and his dog Blaze. We were a really good, close family. He had a great relationship with his sister and his brother. He was the middle. His sister's older, and then Lee, and then Dakota. He also had a half-brother and sister. His half-brother, Tavis, actually died in 2014 from a fentanyl overdose. Tavis was 18 when he passed. He had been drinking, and he took one of his mom's fentanyl pain patches and ended up overdosing on that and dying from it. That was 2014, and that had an impact on Lee. After his brother died, you could see he started to withdraw more, and I probably should have seen then the sleeping more and withdrawing, but I didn't. I didn't link that to Lee being an addict. I just thought he was grieving.
Did he have a large group of friends?
Yeah, he had a lot of friends. He was a big teddy bear, outgoing, friendly, would have done anything for anyone, and everything just kind of like spiraled out of control. The week following his graduation, he was hospitalized with severe diverticulitis. It's an intestinal disease that elderly people get. It's like pockets of infection and stuff in your intestines, and they were actually talking about removing some of his intestines, but they never actually went through with that. He was able to overcome it. He was hospitalized 2011. While he was in the hospital, they had him on some really super strong pain meds.
How old was he at the time?
17. That actually started his journey with pain pills, and it turned into heroin. It was about roughly a 5-year journey. At the beginning of 2016, I think it was February of 2016, he went into rehab and then passed November 12th of 2016.
Were there any red flags or sign or indicators that he was using at the time?
Actually, to look at him, you wouldn't have even known that he was addicted. He was an average young man. There were no indicators to just physically look at him. He was healthy. He was a big guy. You just wouldn't have known, and it can happen to anybody. I didn't see the signs. I had no clue that he was using. You're supposed to protect them. And I didn't protect him. The guilt will always be there. I really didn't know there was a problem until about the end of 2015. Looking back on it, I would say he started sleeping a lot, but he used to work third shift, and third shift's not for the faint at heart, but anyway, he would sleep a lot and slowly started kind of like withdrawing. And then he actually came clean with me. I had gone to the grocery store and I had went to pay for the groceries and my money was gone. I went home and I confronted him about it, and he came clean and admitted that he had been doing pain pills, and then he got addicted to heroin, and he was what he called dope sick, I think it was, from not having it. So he took my money, and then he felt really bad about it. He begged me and his sister to get him help. So we brought him up here to West Branch, and he got into rehab, and he was doing really well. He was in rehab for a few months, and when he got out, he was 9 months clean. He had just turned 24. One of the buddies that he went to rehab with called him up one night and wanted him to come to Williamsport to hook him up. So Lee left with him and never came home.
As a parent, what signs or changes should others be aware of that they suspect a loved one is struggling with addiction?
Withdrawing from family, friends, events, family functions, sleeping a lot, missing items of value, money, people coming and going a lot.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about the journey you and your family went through as you discovered your son's struggle with addiction.
It was really rough. After getting him into rehab, from the time that he came clean, there wasn't a whole lot of time to actually deal with the addiction because we didn't really know about it. And after he came clean and asked for help, we were with him every step of the way. We took him to different rehab facilities. He did his programs, and he was very, very proud of himself, and you could see the life coming back into his eyes.
How do you think this struggle impacted his life?
It was hard. He couldn't keep a job after a while. He had lost his girlfriend. He lost a lot during the struggle. But he also gained a lot, too. After getting into rehab, we all pulled together and really tried to be there and pull him through it.
Could you shed light on the challenges you faced in seeking help for your son and navigating the treatment options available?
When he first went to West Branch, there was a waiting list to get him into a rehab facility. And during that time, waiting for a facility to open up a bed for him, it was scary because you had to constantly keep an eye on him to make sure that he wasn't going to do something drastic. We had to wait for a bed to become available for him. I want to say it was about 10 days. And then a bed became available, and they went to Harrisburg to the Daystar program down there.
Were there any other resources or help that he or you were able to turn for assistance coping with his addiction or treatment?
West Branch, they were a great help. Carolyn Mealy was a great help. I went to one of Carolyn's events Saving Lives for Zachary, and I met Dave Bauer, the head of GRASP, which is Grief Recovery After Substance Passing, and I got into that after Lee had passed, and I went to their meetings every month.
How did you first learn about the opioid overdose that took your son's life?
I was at work. I worked at Valley View at the time, and I was doing a double shift that day, first and second shift. They had actually found Lee early in the morning. I think it was around 5 a.m. that they had found him. And I kept getting this phone call at work, and I wasn't able to answer on the floor. So eventually I had stepped off the floor and returned the phone call, and it was my boyfriend at the time. He said that there was someone at the house to speak with me, so he put them on the phone, and it was the coroner, Chuck Kiesling, to tell me that they had found him.
Addiction affects not only the individual, but their loved ones, of course. How have you found strength and resilience during this journey?
It has been a roller coaster. Every day is a roller coaster. I mean, I've pretty much experienced every emotion known. Numbness, shock, denial, anger. It's hard. It destroyed our whole family. We're really close, still really close. Mm-hmm. We keep each other going. I lost friends during this, but then I've gained a lot of good friends too, so it definitely changes your relationships with friends, even family.
Has Jesus been part of your life during this whole event?
Yes, and there's been a lot of times that I've been angry with him, but he's pulled me through.
Can you share any initiatives or support networks that have helped you cope with the loss?
The GRASP meetings, they're a great family to be in, a great support system, and it specializes mainly on loss after addiction, so it's not like a broad spectrum of grief. You're in a group of people that have traveled the same journey as you.
Mm-hmm. What strategies have helped you cope with the grief and loss you've experienced?
Just continuing to tell Lee's story and to get the awareness out there.
Addiction often carries stigma. How would you like to break down those stigmas and share the realities of its impact with others?
It's not bad people. It's good people that have made some bad choices, and they need family, they need support, and they need you to be there for them.
How did the experience change your perspective on addiction and its effects?
Take it one day at a time, and nobody's promised tomorrow.
What kind of impact has your story had on others who may be facing similar challenges?
I know Lee's story has actually saved several people. They've gotten clean because of him.
That's great. How do you think we can collectively work towards overcoming the stereotypes and misconceptions surrounding addictions?
I think everybody needs to look past the stigma. Addiction isn't a choice. The addicts, yes, they initially made that first choice to use, but addiction is something that you really have no control over.
In what ways do you believe education and open conversations can help prevent more cases of opioid abuse and overdoses?
I mean, if people were just more aware, more compassionate, I think a lot of the stigma would hopefully go away. I don't know that it's going to ever go away because there is a lot of stigma with it, but you can always pray.
That's right, you can pray.
I've spoke at different fundraiser events, overdose awareness events, did my own fundraiser overdose awareness event and spoke at that and had different people speak at it. I've spoke at high schools. I've spoke at colleges. I did an interview with the Washington Post that was aired on 60 Minutes. I think the more people that are aware of like the resources and to carry naloxone, Narcan, so even if you don't have anybody that is addicted, you could be out in the street and see somebody in an overdose. You would have that life-saving substance to help get them through that.
How can we better support individuals and families facing addiction-related challenges?
The resources need to be more readily available, and people need to not be afraid to reach out for help. A lot of times they're afraid to reach out for help for fear of, going to jail or getting in some type of trouble. They're just afraid to reach out for help, and they need to know that the help is there and people want to help.
What message would you like to send to teens, parents, and listeners about the reality of addiction and the need for empathy and support?
It's okay to ask for help. If you're in active addiction, it doesn't make you a bad person. There's people that love you and need you. You wouldn't be doing the fight alone. You have support and people to help you through the journey and to help you get clean and to save your life. Don't be afraid to ask for help. You need to ask for help. Rely on your support system. If you know someone that is in addiction, get them help somehow. Get them the help that they need.
What do you hope listeners take away from your story and how we can all contribute to the fight against addiction?
Addiction not only affects the addict, but everyone around them.
Thank you. Do you have a story about the impact of addiction, drugs, or alcohol that you'd like to share on the Proactive Prevention Podcast? Reach out. We'd love to hear from you. DM us on social media at Road Radio USA or email the Real Road Radio USA at gmail.com. A member of the Road Radio USA road crew will reach out to talk to you about your story. If you enjoyed today's podcast, drop us a review. Just go to Spotify.com, search for the Proactive Prevention Podcast, and give us a 5-star rating along with a brief review. Thanks for listening to the Proactive Prevention Podcast. Until next time, this is Jimbo in Stereo.